Now, King for the most part has been a very mysterious character. We got little tidbits of him being special when Big Mom mentioned his race, but after that, we didn't really get much. And so we're about 40 chapters into the raid, and Oda has started to build him up little by little. He seemingly perhaps plays a much bigger role than we think. Unlike Queen and Jack, King has a more interesting placement in Kaido's crew, especially in terms of what he has to offer. We recently learned that he most likely hails from a race of fire conjurers that apparently lived on the Red Line. And interestingly enough, the Red Line also happens to be the home of the Celestial Dragons. So there's a lot that can be talked about there in terms of expanding the ever-growing lore of the One Piece world. So it's very likely that some lore aspects will be involved here in correlation to King's race, specifically on the subjects such as that of the Void Century. It would make a lot of sense if King's race was affiliated with the world government, and perhaps the result that we see today was caused by something ancient, in terms of King's race being rare or supposedly extinct. So we do have a lot of narrative value for King. He isn't simply just a commander, and because of that, I think he will be put on a pedestal as far as strength and portrayal goes. And I don't think it's far-fetched to assume that he is stronger than Zoro at this point in time. I think that's actually a reasonable judgment to make. Now, I won't deny that Zoro has done some incredible things on the rooftop against Kaido. You know, from blocking one of the strongest attacks we've seen in the entire series to being the second individual to scar Kaido. But I do think that we should definitely take a step back and not go overboard in terms of Zoro's capabilities. Now, as impressive as what Zoro did on the rooftop, Zoro did show his limitations in that battle. And even though he gave it his all against Kaido, Kaido seemingly is still very healthy even after the accumulative damage that he's taken so far. Nothing so far has really phased him yet. He takes damage and recovers just as quickly. So when it comes to Zoro, we should definitely acknowledge his fighting ability. He has enough firepower to hurt Kaido, who a lot of people assume is one of the most durable characters, if not the most durable. However, just because he did this doesn't automatically make him stronger than individuals that are below Kaido, because I think one of the individuals that is above Zoro right now is King. I feel like if we put King on the rooftop with Luffy and the others, he would perform just as good or even better. Even though Katakuri was something of the past and we're growing past that level of strength, First commanders are still very powerful and are individuals who can most likely resist the strength of their captain. I do not see any Yonko one-shotting a first commander. The Yonko would definitely need to put some effort to defeat them. Now, I'm not saying that they have to go all out, but it's definitely not a situation that the Yonko can sit back either. And so with King, I think that he's going to be really powerful. And we also have to remember, the Straw Hats for the most part in every arc are usually the underdogs in battles. The odds are usually against them. And Oda makes it this way because he wants the Straw Hats to grow. And this is especially true for Zoro, Luffy, and Sanji, given that they are the strongest force in the crew. And so by having them as the underdog in these battles, it forces one to transcend beyond their regular capabilities, which results in growth, which is a lot different to a case of two characters being on the same level. Minimal or no growth is usually the result of such battles because one side doesn't have to go beyond their regular means to defeat the other person. And so in the case of Zoro versus King and Sanji versus Queen, these are going to be extreme difficult battles, and they will come out of these battles with abilities that they never had. By fighting stronger opponents, the more potent your haki becomes. Just like how Luffy gained future sight in his battle against Katakuri, I see Sanji and Zoro getting new forms of haki after their respective battles. And I definitely think it's time for Zoro and Sanji to start delving into advanced haki. And I'll talk more on that later on. But going into the matchups here, this couldn't be any better for Zoro and Sanji. Zoro and King are both swordsmen, so similar fighting styles. King also has the ability to control fire, which is very interesting because we do also know that Zoro can cut fire via the sword technique that he learned from Kinemon. I do also believe that King most likely has Conqueror's Haki just to make the matchups even more even, and King has shown very distinct qualities that we see in other right hands that do have Conquerors. He shares a lot of similarities to Katakuri and Rayleigh in some sense, where they have this particular aura about them. Also, with a name like King, you have to have Conqueror's Haki. We do also know that King is the only calamity that hasn't really broke a sweat yet. Everything he's done so far seems to have been very casual, and we haven't seen his hybrid form yet, which means that he doesn't think it's necessary to use his Devil Fruit ability. And given the fact that he has a flying ancient type, kind of makes me think that he could be a speed-based swordsman, whereas he could be using his wings to propel himself for faster attacks. And then you also have to take into account his ability to control fire. We don't know the limitations of the level of fire that he can control. So in terms of just overall ability, he has a very devastating arsenal of powers, and who knows, he might be an awakened ancient Zoan as well. I feel like that's something Oda hasn't really expanded upon in terms of the Beast Pirates. Maybe King might be the actual person that's awakened with an ancient type. We know what awakening does for regular Zoans, but what would be the difference for ancient types if there is any differences? So with King, there's obviously going to be some aspects to his fighting style that Zoro is most likely going to struggle with, and something that he has to overcome. Now when it comes to Zoro, I could see him getting more of an understanding of what he did on the rooftop, because we know that Zoro isn't exactly aware or sure of what he did back then. So we could get Zoro having moments of him controlling that ability in a better way. There's also advanced Ryo to think about here, and I think if Zoro learns this would put his swordsmanship to a whole new level, because the whole premise of the internal destruction is damaging things from the inside out. We've seen Luffy use it with his blows, but what exactly happens when you use it with a sword? This would give Zoro the insane power to cut things from the inside out. This would honestly make Zoro extremely dangerous if he learned this skill set added on to his control of Conqueror's coding. This would outright be insane, because Zoro would essentially be doing what Luffy's doing but with a sword, and we know that sword techniques are more lethal than blows. Like, imagine cutting someone from the inside out. Like, that's actually ridiculous. And honestly, I'm starting to see why individuals like Mihawk and Shanks are probably very deadly in combat. Now when it comes to Sanji, I think there's a lot that can be expanded upon here. Granted, we haven't seen everything Queen can do, but I think a good portion of it is science related, and also Devilfruit as well. So with Sanji having the raid suit, the matchup makes a lot of sense here as well, where it's going to be a science related battle, as well as it being very physical in terms of blow for blow, considering that we're dealing with Zoans here. I do also think Haki would play a part here, especially if used in combination with Diable Jambe. So far, Queen has taken a lot of hits from Sanji, but nothing really substantial in terms of damage yet, which tells me that we may see a higher level of Diable Jambe. Something that really hasn't been expanded upon is how the raid suit augments Sanji. We know that the Vinsmokes all have innate abilities without the suit, and when they wore the suit, it augmented those abilities. So could Diable Jambe get an upgrade while being used in conjunction with his raid suit? I think it's definitely a possibility, given what we've seen from how the raid suit amplifies the abilities of the other Vinsmokes. I think the same thing should also apply here. Now in terms of the Haki aspect, I think Sanji needs to delve into Ryo, because it seems like that's a very essential abilities if you want to take on these commander level zones, and especially for Queen, given that he possesses arguably the most durable ancient type in all of Kaido's crew. So I don't think regular armament is going to be enough here to bypass that durability. Sanji definitely needs a Haki bloom in this fight. His observation seems to be really good, so I think we need more armament related upgrades. But overall, I'm really looking forward to this battle. It's finally time to see where Zoro and Sanji rank in the battles of Yonko commanders, especially for Sanji because we haven't really seen him go all out yet. So I'm really excited for Zoro and Sanji, but I'd say even more so for Sanji because we haven't seen much. We've seen Kaido fight on the rooftop, but Sanji so far really hasn't done anything yet. But the monster trio coming out of Wano are going to be monsters. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Comment down below what you guys think. I would appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video and subscribe for more One Piece content. You can follow me on Twitter at Ferrospace, but it is Ferro, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.